I'll ask you the question that Gary had. Any chances of a RICO statute or RICO charges being introduced here against these Democrats who are leading this impeachment probe?
Well, that's interesting. If you go back to early 2017, we had a new attorney general, and I was speaking to him, and I said, Jeff, there was a law already made for what the Democrats have been doing, where we have video that, or it may have been just audio on that, but where the Democrats admitting, hey, we're the ones that funded the violence at Trump campaign events. We're the one that's been undermining this and that. I said, there is a law that could be used and applies, and it's called RICO. Racketeer Influence Corrupt Organizations, and this is organized crime. They raise all this money and then they go spend it to stir up violence at campaign events, and there's all kinds of other inappropriate things that they've done. It needs to be stopped, and Jeff said that is a really interesting idea. But along with some other interesting things I tried to warn him about, he did not take notice or didn't apply the information. Nothing ever happened. But when you have organizations that go spend money, raise money, spend money, just to skirt the law as they've done, and you try to bring down a sitting president and have a coup to eliminate a duly elected president. We're talking about some very serious violations of the law. And just as I did believe 2.5 years ago, I still believe RICO could be applied and applied effectively to bring down this whole cabal. It is really outrageous. And, from the pay to play stuff that turns out Biden and Hillary Clinton both appear to be involved in. You look at the $145 million that went to the Clinton Foundation after over 20% of our production of uranium was sold to Russia. I mean, it is just outrageous. And poor President Trump, I mean, he's doing all he can, but he does not have enough cabinet leaders in positions to do what needs to be done to protect this country. And as Breitbart reports about McClellan this morning, he's a guy that he is a Democrat. He's an operative. He is undermining the president. He's doing all he can to harm America. He thinks he's helping it. He thinks it's a good idea to ignore the law and not enforce the law. There's just far too many people like that. And I know a specific incident, and I told the president actually a year ago when I was visiting one-on-one with him in the Oval Office that he's got people around the White House that absolutely want to undermine everything he's done. And he said, like who? And the first person I named, he said, oh, I like that guy. And I said, I know, he's really good at sucking up to you. But he is, he's really assisting in hiring people that can't stand you. And in fact, if you tell him, gee, I voted for Trump, then odds are you will not get hired to work in the White House. So I know that he hired a bunch of people to be around and work around the White House who did not support Trump, do not want to see him succeed. He's gotten rid of some of the worst, but that is still a problem with this America First agenda. And like he told the UN, if you want to protect freedom, you better protect your own sovereignty first. And you only can help the world if you are strong at home first. So
no question.
God bless him. He's doing what he can.
No question about it. I want to switch. One of the big topics we've had this morning, Congressman, is the revelation that Adam Schiff had, or his representatives had, knowledge of the complaint before it was filed, potentially maybe even helped write it, and him obviously being dishonest about having that knowledge in the MSNBC interview where he said he had not contacted or spoken to the whistleblower at all. We're now we know, thanks to the New York Times article yesterday, that he did have knowledge prior to September 17th about that, and in fact prior knowledge before the complaint was even filed. First of all, you're in the House, you see this stuff, you know the rules. How big of a violation is this, especially considering he did not inform the Republican members of the House Intelligence Committee, which apparently he is under obligation to do, and the lies that he's done here with the inserting paragraphs into Trump's conversation that he didn't do, and all these things. How big of a deal is it? How big of a violation? And what can conceivably be done to him into punishment, recusal, whatever it is? What can be done to bring him to justice for the way he's run his committee and the lies he's told?
Well, as far as what could be done within Congress itself, some of us have signed a letter and supporting it that Andy Biggs had done, demanding that he be censured. That's just a public rebuke by Congress, by the House itself, addressing his improprieties, including being dishonest about contact. Now, he was careful. It's as if he's worked at the CIA and he's gotten very good at misinformation campaigns when he says, hey, I had no direct communication with the whistleblower, when actually it depends on how you define direct. Very careful about that. But there are other things that he has said that are just outright overt lies over the last 2.5 years. He was assuring us continuously that he had plenty of evidence to show that Russia and the Trump campaign colluded to change the 2016 election outcome. And that simply was a lie. It was not true. And so now that turned out there was no such evidence, that was a lie, and we turn to this whole thing with a whistleblower who's not a whistleblower. He's a co-conspirator. And on the one hand, it's absolutely infuriating that somebody would be working within our CIA and working to do to this country what the CIA has worked many times, apparently, as I understand it, in foreign countries to have misinformation campaigns, to bring down administrations in foreign countries. And so, I know the New York Times, fully supportive of Schiff, they thought when they revealed, the so-called whistleblower, who's really just a co-conspirator, he's actually a CIA agent. They thought that would reassure a lot of, really? CIA agent? You mean he hates Trump and wants to bring him down like Brennan and Clapper, those kind of intelligence people? You mean we can trust that he is a co-conspirator to try to have regime change in our own country and bring down this is serious stuff. And they did make a miscalculation, both Schiff and the co-conspirator that filed a complaint. They didn't think Trump would release the transcript of the conversation. So, it's clear, Dylan, their plan was, okay, we get this complaint out there and we put in the complaint a huge amount of misinformation, make the president look terrible, saying things he never said. That's all okay. he's not going to release the transcript. He can't afford to, especially when there was discussion in there where they were not kind to Merkel in Germany. They can't afford to have any of that come out. So we can just keep pushing our complaint and then accuse him of being involved in a cover-up. So their plan got a little ahead of itself because they already had they've got the complaint. They knew what it said if they didn't help write it up themselves. And then Trump releases the transcript, but they weren't smart enough or quick enough or adept enough to realize, we better cut the second phase of our misinformation campaign where we allege he's covering up, he's hiding what was said. So they go ahead and say he's covering up, and Trump's going, I released the transcript. What are you talking about covering up? Gee. Well, they continue to try to push the cover-up narrative for a little bit, but obviously that was a lie, just like the whole complaint was. There was no quid pro Joe, as Breitbart likes to put in their articles. It's just outrageous the extent to which they have tried to cause regime change. And going back to RICO, you could use RICO, but I'm telling you, this complaint to me is potentially, before you can convict somebody of a conspiracy to commit a crime, you have to have an act in furtherance of a conspiracy to do some impropriety. And filing a false complaint after you have leaked classified information, that act of filing that complaint, that act of going around the inspector general and first contacting the Democrats on the Intelligence Committee, that may very well be an act that hangs them up. They think that the New York Times and others thought, when we say he's a CIA agent, this what they call whistleblower, the co-conspirator, that'll give him more credibility. And when it comes out that he actually talked and says in the complaint to people at the White House to get all this information, well, thank you very much. You've just helped us know where to look to find the other co-conspirators of your little misinformation campaign. So, they actually did us a favor telling us where to look to root out these others who are engaged in this co-conspiracy to have a coup in our own country. Serious stuff.
And it's incredibly serious, and Congressman, I don't think anybody else could have broken it down in that small amount of time better than you did. I really appreciate you swinging by this morning and laying it all out there and telling us where this is headed. This is really appreciated.
Well, thank you. And I actually I was up most of last, not before last, writing an op-ed that should go up on Breitbart this morning. So
great.
Keep your eye peeled for that. Thanks so much.
We will. Appreciate you, Congressman. Thanks.